UW-Madison is a gigantic university, and so many of our students take gigantic classes. They come here and they sit in a 50-minute lecture and then leave feeling like it didn't really matter if they'd been there at all. So sometimes I think students think that faculty don't care about them. And on the flip side, faculty don't think that their students care about their classes. We tend to think of teaching as a delivery of content rather than teaching as a relationship in which people are actively co-constructing knowledge together. So for example, once I had a faculty colleague who was talking about how she would ask questions in her class and no one would answer. And she sort of assumed that no one was listening or really cared. She was just frustrated. She said, "It just seems silly for me to keep asking questions when no one answers." And so I said to her, "Why don't you just ask your students to write down on a card why they're not responding?" So she tried it, and the cards she got back said things like, "The questions you ask are really obvious. Why would I raise my hand to say the obvious?" Or they said, "I know so-and-so is always going to respond, so there's no need for me to." Or, "I actually need more time to think about it, and you just want me to answer immediately." She was really surprised by those answers because she had been thinking, "Oh, my students just aren't paying attention." The thing I continue to bring to this work is this idea that the students who are in our classes are actual people, and that we have to treat them like people and think about them as people. And this is particularly important for students who feel oppressed or marginalized in our classes. For example, they might be one student of color in a class of 50 white students, or they're one of 3 first-generation students, or they identify as an LGBTQ+ student. Creating relationships with our students is important because it helps us reframe them not just as learners, but as people who have unique experiences in our classes. By the end of MTLE, our fellows are convinced that their students could give them information that would actually be useful to their teaching. And that's such a nice transition for us to see. This focus on students in teaching is valuable because it facilitates creating relationships that can extend beyond the bounds of just one course. Relationships that can support students being successful across their university career.